Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful game I've never shown on the channel. It's from the 37th Chess Olympiad and it's Arkadij Naiditsch versus Magnus Carlsen. Magnus was 15 years old at the time, Arkadij was 20. And like the protector of this channel, Mikhail Tal, Arkadij is also from Riga, Latvia. Later on, he transferred to Germany. He became the strongest German player. And then later on, he transferred to play for Azerbaijan. And he's known to be a very, very tactical, very sharp player. He defeated many strong players. They even called him the Giant Slayer or the Giant Killer. Like I said, this was played in 2006. In 2005 in Dortmund, he defeated the reigning world champion Vladimir Kramnik. And okay, this was during the great split of the FIDE and Classical. You had two world champions at the time. FIDE champion was Veselin Topalov, and the Classical world champion was Vladimir Kramnik after defeating Kasparov in the year 2000. But yeah, obviously Arkadij at this time and at this moment in time was an incredibly strong player. So let's check it out and why everyone enjoys this game so much. Arkadij with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 by Magnus, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. We have knight to f6, the two knights defense, and now look at this, knight to g5. We have pawn to d5, e captures, and now pawn to b5. This is the sort of the Ulvestad variation, or the Ulvestad variation, and not a lot of people know how to play this, especially at lower levels. Especially, even I myself, I've been playing the two knights defense with both white and black for the better part of my life, and I don't think I've seen this pawn to b5 move until a couple of years back, and it was during a tournament game. It was a classical game, and I think a 9 or a 10-year-old played it against me, and I was like, "What is this?" And I just captured a pawn, which isn't the best way to play. The best way to play is bishop to f1, and of course that is what Arkadij played. The reason why you don't capture on b5 is that after queen captures on d5, attacking the bishop, you don't have knight c3. If you did, it'd be great, but then the queen captures on g2, and you can easily lose the game on the spot. So what you can do after this pawn to b5 move is, well, bishop to f1 is considered by far the strongest. But if you play a lot of online chess, if everyone knows how to play against bishop to f1, you can play bishop to e2. Not right away, but for example, after this bishop captures on b5 and queen captures on d5, you can play bishop back to e2, and now everyone makes the same mistake. The most played move in the database here is queen captures on g2. This is what everyone plays. And the problem is, yes, you are attacking the rook and the knight, but after bishop to f3, you can have the knight, but then bishop captures and c6 comes with check. And then after the bishop blocks, you can even win a free tempo on the queen. And once the queen moves, doesn't really matter where, you can pick up the rook. Again, many games with this exact same setup. And yes, you will have to suffer through a couple of moves not to get checkmated quickly. Let's say queen to f3. Knight to g4 also looks scary, but you can just play knight c3, and there's really nothing better. You have to capture on f2, then queen g3, you force a queen trade, captures, black picks up the rook on h1, bishop captures, and you're just up a full knight and in a completely winning position. So yeah, you can try something like this, or even better, if you still haven't, you should download Lotus Chess. First link in the description below. For those of you who still haven't seen it, this is their logo, and you will learn a lot of cool lines like this. So you will learn how to play fighting chess, and you will always have something to play for. You will understand the positions easily, and you will always find a way to sacrifice a pawn or two and go for the initiative. That's how they are trying to make chess learning simple, but also, just to play fighting chess. And that's what I like about them the most. So try it out. If you still haven't, you will love it, guaranteed. But here, after b5, of course, these two know how to play chess very well. Bishop to f1. This is the top move recommended by the engine. And while both bishop e2 and bishop to f1 are a draw, the engine says bishop to f1 is a little bit stronger. The g2 pawn is defended, so of course everyone plays that. We have pawn to h6. Magnus already, maybe blunder is a harsh word, because, okay, back then, no one really analyzed this line with an engine. And for some reason, Arkadij played knight to e6. And you should play knight captures on f7, since you will pick up the knight on c6. But the difference is that after captures and d captures on c6, let's say bishop to c5, okay, you have this position, but there's no pawn on e6. With the line that Arkadij chose after bishop to f1, and that is to go knight to and that is after this pawn to h6 move to go knight to e6, f captures on e6, and now d captures on c6 and bishop to c5. It's pretty much the exact same position, only Magnus has a pawn on e6, which he wouldn't have in the other line. So he's just up a pawn, and that pawn is covering a lot of very important squares here. So it's very unclear what Arkadij was trying to achieve here. But okay, we have pawn to d3, castles kingside, and bishop to e3. We have bishop captures on e3, f captures, and queen to d6. Magnus develops the queen, goes after the pawn, and okay, just nicely continues developing. We have knight to d2 by Arkadij, queen captures on c6, and pawn to e4. We have queen to c5, getting control of this diagonal, not allowing Arkadij to castle kingside. Knight to b3, attacking the queen on c5, and queen to b6. We have queen to e2, and now bishop to d7, pawn to g3, and pawn to a5, going after that. Knight on b3, we have bishop to h3, and pawn to a4, knight d2, and even pawn to a3. So now it's really unclear what Arkadij will do with the king. We have pawn to b3, and the bishop to e8, shifting the bishop over to h5. We have queen to f2, offering a queen trade, and Magnus says, nope, I control more space, I politely decline. Plays queen to c6, we have castles kingside, and now bishop to h5. We have queen to e3, getting the queen off of that f-file, and the bishop to g4, just offering a trade of bishops, trying to get the knight to g4 to put more pressure on the queen and on white's kingside in general. We have bishop to g2, and now queen captures on c2, rook f to c1, and queen to b2. Magnus sort of almost self-trapping his queen, but not really. We have pawn to h3, rook a to d8, beautiful move by Magnus, and it's beautiful because if you play h captures on g4, then after knight captures on g4, you just have too many holes in the position. You can't keep an eye on the knight, rook is coming to f2, it's just terrible. For example, if queen e2, pawn to h5, you defend the knight, and after, okay, you try to go after the black queen, queen d4 check, and after king h1, rook to f2, attacks the queen, and if queen to e1, then you double up, and nothing more can be done. Rook c1, you can even sacrifice the exchange, king captures, the other rook comes to f2 check, king to h1, and rook to h2 is checkmate, or something like that. You don't have to go into checkmate. You can go to g1 and then suffer all sorts of nasty discoveries like rook captures on d2 with check, and so on. So it would be a slower and more painful. So after rook a to b1, we have queen captures on a2, and now rook to a1. Of course, pawn to b4 is the strongest move, as it is in many positions. With pawn to b4, the position is sort of equal. But here, after rook to a1, we have queen to b2, and now again rook a to b1. We have queen to a2, rook a1, queen to b2, and now rook a to b1. Arkadij ready to settle for a draw, but Magnus says, nope, not today. Plays queen to d4, which should be impossible, as how are you trading queens? Your bishop on g4 is hanging. But Magnus says, my position is so good, I don't need the extra piece. So I'm just gonna win without the bishop. And okay, queen captures on d4. We have rook captures on d4, and now h captures on g4. We have rook captures on d3, attacking the knight. Knight to f1, defending the g3 pawn, and now Magnus plays rook to a8. Again, pawn to b4 is better, but pawn to b4 is always better. We have rook to a8, and now we have rook captures on c7. Of course, b4 was better, but, no one seems to understand that. Magnus plays pawn to a2. Even here, pawn to b4 is better. But okay, pawn to a2. We have rook to a1 and rook captures on b3. We have rook to c2, now going after the a2 pawn, and rook b to a3. Defending the passed pawn, we have rook to b2, going after the b pawn, and now rook 8 to a5, defending the pawn. And if you look at the position, okay, Magnus is up a pawn, up 2 pawns. He's down a piece, but that bishop on g2, it doesn't really have a bright future. I mean, you would have to really invest time and moves here to make something out of it. So knight to d2 by Arkadij, knight captures on g4 by Magnus, and now knight to b3. We have rook 5 to f4, a4, as the rook was attacked on a5, bishop to h3, and now pawn to h5. Magnus even wants to trade pieces on g4. Arkadij trades, captures, and now knight back to d2. And again, b4 should be played here. Magnus goes for rook captures on g3 with check, king to f2, and now rook g back to a3, and rook captures on b5. So Magnus gives up the b pawn, and this is now the position. Magnus is up 4 pawns, but Arkadij is up a knight. So it's not, overall it's equal. We have king f7, and now, as it often is in chess, you have so many moves that you can play. King g2 is fine, rook to c5 is fine, rook to b2 is fine, but Arkadij plays the only move, or rather one of the few moves that loses him the game. He plays king to e2, and Magnus doesn't pick up on it. Magnus just plays king f6. He wants to activate his king as well. Unfortunately, I don't have the clock times for this game as it was played in 2006, but the way to win this is rook h3. You have to go behind the white king, and now if king f2, now you have rook h2 check, and the king has to defend the knight. You have to do it via the e1 square, and now rook h1 check, knight, otherwise you're gonna lose the rook on a1, so knight to f1, and now g3, g2, and you win the game easily. So that is how you play this. So after king e2, Magnus misses this. He plays king to f6, and now king to d1. Now Magnus can again play it as Arkadij missed it again, and now Magnus finds it. We have rook to h3, king to c2, and pawn to g3. We have rook to b3, now stopping the pawn from being pushed forward, but Magnus just improves the position of his king. King g5, we have king to b2, king g4, rook to c3, and pawn to g2. Now the pawn is already upon queening. We have rook c to c1, now getting both rooks on the back rank, and rook to e3. We have king to c2, king to g3, we have king to b2, and king to f2. Arkadij has nothing to do but wait for the inevitable. We have rook to c2, now threatening some discoveries, but Magnus just played rook to e2, and he was in this position on move 54 that Arkadij Naiditsch resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So how do you win this? Well, the point is that whatever white plays, let's say you attack the rook. Okay, the rook moves, rook d4, and now let's say king c3. You can even play rook captures on d2. That's just how good the position is, because you have two passed pawns on the penultimate rank, and there's nothing white can do about it. Captures. Now you just queen the pawn, and after the queen is captured, the a pawn, of course, is unstoppable. King c2 or whatever, you get another queen into the game and win the game easily. So yeah, a very interesting decision by Magnus, giving up a piece like that, saying, okay, my position is just much better. And even though it wasn't a perfect game, there were mistakes on both sides, Magnus wins the game. And young Magnus, he played really crazy chess. So nowadays, he plays a lot less classical, a lot safer chess, a lot more precise chess as well. But he was incredibly strong here. He already finished his sort of tutoring by Kasparov, and he already became incredibly strong. But he still played really wild chess, so it was a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, great game by both of them. It is Magnus who takes this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And like I said, download Lotus Chess. Try it out. You will love it, guaranteed. And you will have something ready for every game. And we also have something in store coming up. It will go way beyond chess. Just to give you a little heads up. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank John Variet, Duncan Winecall, Ramesh Sadi, Sanjeev Sharma, and Creators Workshop for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.